You know what's strange? The people who've survived the most rarely look like it. They're the calm ones in chaos, the ones cracking jokes when everything is falling apart, the ones who say, "It's fine," and somehow sound convincing. But that calm, that humor, that emotional steadiness, it wasn't gifted. It was earned the hard way. People who've gone through too much don't experience life the same way anymore. Not because they're broken, but because their brain adapted in ways most people never had to. Let me explain. When you've lived through repeated stress, loss, or unpredictability, your nervous system rewires itself around one core mission: survival. Not happiness, not comfort, survival. So when someone cuts them off in traffic, they don't explode. Their brain already knows something most people don't yet. Not every threat deserves your energy. They've learned to conserve emotional resources the way someone who's been poor learns to conserve money. Every reaction is calculated. Every emotion is filtered. And here's the part most people misunderstand. Their brain isn't numb. It's trained. Neuroscience shows that prolonged stress increases activity in the brain's threat detection systems, especially the amygdala, while strengthening top-down control from the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for regulation and meaning-making. In simple terms, they learned how to stay functional in situations that would overwhelm others. But there's a cost. People who've been through too much often develop something that looks like emotional superpowers. They can read rooms instantly. They notice tone shifts before words change. They sense tension before it's spoken. You think you're hiding it. They already know. This isn't intuition. It's pattern recognition built through experience. Psychologists sometimes describe this as hyperattunement, a skill developed when safety depended on reading subtle emotional cues early and accurately. They don't just hear silence. They feel its weight. They know whether it's tired silence, angry silence, or disappointed silence. Most people walk into a room and see objects. They walk in and feel the atmosphere. And here's something most people never expect. Despite everything they've endured, many of these individuals don't become colder. They become more empathetic, not soft empathy, precise empathy. They know exactly how pain hides because they've lived inside it. This is where psychology gives us language for something deeply human. Psychologist Tedeschi introduced the concept of post-traumatic growth, showing that a significant portion of people who experience serious adversity don't just recover, they psychologically expand. According to Tedeschi's research, many trauma survivors report deeper relationships, clearer priorities, greater appreciation for ordinary moments, and a stronger sense of meaning. Not because trauma is good, but because it forces perspective. That's why someone who's been through too much can feel overwhelming gratitude over simple things. A quiet morning, a safe person, a peaceful moment. They know how rare peace really is. But growth doesn't erase scars. People who've been through too much often live with hypervigilance. Their body doesn't fully trust calm. Their nervous system learned that safety can disappear without warning. So yes, they like sitting facing the door. They plan backup plans for backup plans. They rehearse conversations that haven't happened yet. This isn't anxiety for no reason. It's a body that learned unpredictability the hard way. And here's something almost no one talks about. They minimize their own pain constantly. It wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I'm fine, really. Because for a long time, acknowledging pain wasn't safe. Strength became their identity. Endurance became their proof of worth. So admitting struggle now feels like regression, like undoing everything they survived. Relationships can be complicated because of this. People who've been through too much often crave closeness, but flinch when it actually arrives. They'll show up for you instantly, protect you fiercely, stay loyal beyond reason, but ask them to rely on you, ask them to need something. Their nervous system braces, because in their past, dependence came with consequences. So they learned self-sufficiency not as empowerment, but as protection. It looks strong. It feels lonely. Yet there's another adaptation most people miss. They're incredibly flexible. Change doesn't scare them the way it scares others. They've already rebuilt themselves multiple times. Job loss, moving cities, life collapsing unexpectedly. They've been there before. And then there's the humor. Dark humor, sharp humor, unexpected laughter at inappropriate moments. That humor isn't denial, it's control. When you can laugh at pain, pain loses its authority over you. Comedy becomes psychological armor, a way to reclaim power from experiences that once had all of it. But beneath all this strength, insight, and adaptability, there's grief. Not the grief of losing someone else, but the grief of losing who they were. They grieve the version of themselves that trusted easily, that didn't scan rooms for danger, that didn't rehearse conversations or brace for disappointment. They miss a softness they didn't get to keep. How do you explain that you're nostalgic for a version of yourself that barely existed? That you're homesick for a feeling, not a place? This grief doesn't destroy them. It refines them. It makes them quieter, more intentional, more selective about where their energy goes. They value peace because they understand the cost of chaos. They value safe people because unsafe ones taught them what damage feels like. And maybe that's the real psychology here. People who've gone through too much don't just survive adversity. They develop a layered, nuanced understanding of what it means to be human. They know strength isn't never breaking. It's learning how to reassemble yourself even when you're not the same shape anymore. Their pain became insight. Their endurance became compassion. And without trying, they became something rare. Not because their life was gentle, but because they learned how to navigate storms. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it avoided darkness. It shines because it remembers it. So if you recognize yourself in the calm, the humor, the depth, the quiet grief, just know this: you didn't go through too much for nothing. You're still here, still adapting, still hoping. And that's not weakness. That's psychology.